Welcome on into Love of the Star. We got some Cowboy news, injury, and coaching as we get you set for Cowboys and Chargers. Love of the Star proudly presented by the On-Time Experts, the official AC heating and plumbing partner of the Dallas Cowboys. Make sure you are contacting the On-Time Experts anytime you need anything repaired when it comes to heating or cooling. They'll come to your home the same day. Backed by their Stay Cool guarantee, visit theontimeexperts.com and click the Book Now button. You're going to pay less over time because they correctly diagnose your issue and fix it right the first time. Zach Wolchuk alongside the Super Bowl champion, the scout himself, the great Brian Broaddus. And Brian, during our show on the G-Bag Nation, the news broke that Deron Bland could potentially be done for the season because of injury. As it stands right now, he is going to get a second opinion, but he's got a foot issue that has, been sidelining him. He was on the injury report. And now for Deron Bland, possibly surgery could be on the table per Todd Archer, but he's a likely IR candidate, which would end his season for the final 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. He's been dealing with the injury in the same foot. It's not like that they might go in there and need to repair a screw or replace a screw within the foot. So those are the things that he's been kind of dealing with. It's probably been causing him some problems. He looks like he's battled through some things. But here we are at this time of the year. If somehow the Commanders win, on Saturday, well, you still have a chance, but we're getting to the point in time where it's, likely that the Cowboys will not be in the playoffs. Better go ahead and try and get the surgery done now, get a jump on it if he has to have a surgery, but get it done now, get himself, give himself plenty of time for the rehab to get himself ready for off-season workouts and stuff like that. So just kind of been a rough year for the Cowboys defensively, especially with the defensive backs and the way that they've had to kind of battle through injuries, whether it's, with Diggs, with Ravel coming back from an injury. They've lost safeties at points and times during the season. Carson's been out games before and come back. It's just been a real mess for this Cowboys defense, especially there in the secondary.
And it certainly has not been the Deron Bland that we're accustomed to. I mean, look, Bland is a player that will give up some yards, but in terms of the takeaways, getting, not necessarily turning and locating the football, just certain plays that he has been giving up that I don't know if Deron Bland typically would have if he was healthy. Maybe this is an indication of, why some of that has happened. I mean, I'm just being hopeful that that's the reason why, and he gets whatever he needs to get done, taken care of, and he comes back healthy and returns to, the self that the Cowboys gave in a contract extension to. But it's crazy, Brian, going from the draft to now, and you thought, okay, corner is a position that they've got kind of settled now for the foreseeable future. Diggs is under contract. When we were out in Oxnard, they get the extension done with Bland. He's back. They're hoping he's going to be ready to rock. And then you knew Savone Revel was going to eventually play at some point this year. You just didn't know when. But now you've got 3 players that you feel really good about. Now, Revel, I do feel good about moving forward. I think he's making strides every week. Hopefully he can remove that brace eventually. But the future for Diggs, it sounds like it's going to be somewhere outside of Dallas. And now for Deron Bland, you don't really know.
Yeah, it's you walked us through it, all the things, and this is why you and I have already started working on the college draft. And I know you got probably four first-round corners, and then you probably got Hood from Tennessee into the second round. So you got 5 corners. This might be the deepest position right off the jump. When we start to do the corners, there might be more second-round corners, more possibly. Maybe there's somebody that elevates in the first. A lot is going to depend on, how they do handle things in free agency. But corner is clearly one of those spots now. Diggs with the whole knee situation, we'll know tomorrow if Diggs is not active or put on the 53-man roster, then he will go back to injured reserve, and likely, like you said, his career will be done with the Dallas Cowboys. The thing with Bland, you watch him play, you could tell he was struggling. He did not play with the burst that he's had before. He didn't play with the the speed, the quickness, it just seemed like kind of a cautious guy. And maybe he was dealing with this foot injury to the point where when he planted his foot, it didn't feel very comfortable for him to be able to handle that. So, yeah, you could look at this entire Dallas Cowboys defense and say whatever player they draft or sign will likely help this team in 2026. And they've got to figure out very quickly, the situation too with Matt Eberflus and the staff. I had somebody tweet at me. I was asking when was the last time or how quickly. I know Vach Lombardi and I had a question for each other. Do you feel like this is going to be something quick that they do, the decision? They talked about this. I can't remember the person's name, but they were nice enough to say, hey, Dallas in 2020, when Mike Nolan was the coach, the season ended on the 3rd of, much like this, the 3rd of January. By the 8th of January, Mike Nolan had been fired. And then I think on the 11th, Dan Quinn had been hired. Yeah, if they have somebody in mind like that, that's names might be Brian Flores or somebody like that we're kind of, maybe they're already working on some stuff right now. But boy, I hope that it is a little bit more exhaustive than that. But I don't want this thing to drag into you and I and Aisha Morrison, Vach Lombardi. We're all talking about the draft, but
Right.
Senior Bowl, and they still haven't hired or done anything with the defensive coordinator. But there is a little bit of a history when they did move on from a guy. It was January 3rd. The season ended. It was the 8th, and then it was the 11th. Is how quickly it all took place.
Well, the other news was, Matt Eberflus moving upstairs. Now he's going to be coaching from the booth to call the Cowboys defense. Flus telling the media on Thursday, I think that's a really good thing. And Shadi and I talked it through, and I've done it before. It's really a chance for me to get good perspective.
17 years ago, kind of thing?
Yeah, as a linebacker coach, not as a D coordinator, he had to get good information, see the game develop in terms of information given to me on the sidelines. It's been a while, but it's going to be a good adjustment. And you're absolutely right. First time Flus was in the booth in the NFL was his first season when he was with the Cleveland Browns as a linebackers coach in 2009. Previously, of course, we know he was with the Colts as their DC, head coach of the Bears, and he was on the field calling defensive plays. So now this is Aaron Whitecotton, defensive line coach. He's going to be the one tasked with the messages for the defense as a whole. And Coach Whitecotton said each guy has their area. Whitecotton will be the guy that spearheads that in terms of bringing the guys together and all of that, making adjustments in terms of totality. That's pretty quick. And then once you get to your position group, they'll be making their adjustments. So this whole thing is why now, I think is probably the big question.
Yeah.
Why'd you wait?
Yeah. Let me throw out something that's very reckless. Let me throw out something that's really kind of reckless here. We saw last week that down in the Cowboys red zone inside the 5, that they did not get the defensive personnel on the field quick enough. And Shadi had to use timeout.
Mm-hmm.
There could be a situation where Shadi's like, I don't want you down there. Maybe there was this is speculation, reckless, just a point. Maybe Shadi's like, listen, go away from me. Go away from me. I don't, that's the thing that I would first think that maybe Shadi's like, listen, you just I'm going to go upstairs, get an idea, but I don't want you down on the sideline with me. That's reckless. And that's kind of probably not what has happened, but you can't tell me 3 weeks left in the season. And 2 of the games are going to be, here we are once again in those Sunday, Thursday situations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this thing we just went through a couple of weeks ago, but you can't tell me that putting a guy upstairs is going to open up some major revelations of how the team is playing and all that. There might be something to this of Shadi just telling him, please just go away, go away over here, and and you coach. Shotty's talking about winning the games and stuff like that, but I think maybe maybe the die has already been cast for Matt Eberflus going forward,
And
and
there has to be.
Shotty doesn't want him on the field with him at this time.
No, I think there's got to be something to what you're saying, right? It doesn't make sense otherwise, especially the fact that
Not
he's
3
never done
weeks,
this
not yet.
before as a defensive
Yeah.
coordinator, right?
Yeah.
Like if Flus had done this when he was with Indy or whatever it was, and well, maybe that's better for him. Then okay, let's see. The last 3 weeks, go save your job. But this is a move that he's never done this, calling plays as a defensive coordinator. It doesn't make any sense. The other thing that I threw out was, with Aaron Whitecotton getting maybe an elevated responsibility with the stressing continuities, there's an opportunity to kind of see, okay, could Aaron Whitecotton possibly step up as a defensive coordinator candidate? I know you brought up the point of like, okay, well, let's look at the defensive line. Let's look at his group, right? How's the play been there?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Zach, because listen, there's a lot of arrows have been thrown in the direction of Matt Eberflus, and rightfully so. And Shoddy and Matt and anybody that works in the National Football League knows damn good and well the scrutiny and what you go through. And the old Jerry Glanville, the old what NFL means, it stands for not for long. If you remember, and so you understand if you're not having success. You get that real fast. You hear it. It's the only job I think in the world, and there's other jobs I think in sports are that way, but being in sports where you see your performance every day in the news, every day. Well, maybe the president or government and stuff like that, but every day there's somebody talking about the job you're doing, good or bad, and especially on the Dallas Cowboys. And I think that Matt Eberflus understands that. I think that Brian Schottenheimer clearly understands that. If this was an audition for Whitecotton, then just name him the coordinator. Now, if we all of a sudden get to a point of the game where we see Aaron Whitecotton with a play call sheet and him clicking the device on his belt or on his hip, the communication device, and he's directly talking, and Matt Eberflus is upstairs as an observation guy, like telling him, hey, they're in 12 personnel. They're in 11 personnel. Think about this. Good, if that's the case, or if that's what's happened, it's okay. Let's get Matt Eberflus out of the way. Go be an observation guy. Aaron Whitecotton, you're going to be the defensive coordinator of the last 3 games, and we'll see. We'll see if they pan down there and hand is on hip, talking, hitting the button, and it's going out to the field, and he's got a play sheet in front of him. Then we know the Cowboys have elevated him as the defensive coordinator, while Matt Eberflus is away off the sidelines and become an observation role of trying to help Aaron Whitecotton with what he's seeing.
Yeah, I mean that'll be fascinating because I don't think there's part of me that always wonders about. He was clearly a Jones hire. Jane also clarified that he was technically hired before Shoddy. I mean, they were thinking about Shoddy at the time, at least as the OC. And then when they were moving towards, okay, here's the head coaching decision. We want to get a guy who's got head coaching experience. That's what they like, is defensive coordinator. So Shoddy was that guy. And I think he was interviewed on the Doomsday podcast with our friends Ed Werder and Matt Mosley. And he said the same thing. Like, all right, I didn't know who the head coach for sure was going to be.
Yeah.
I was talking to them about the job. So again, I think that's a flaw with how they put this thing together. I think if you're going to hire a head coach, trust that head coach to go ahead and get his staff together.
I kind of feel like, though, this is one of those times where Shoddy probably wasn't feeling like he was going to get the head coaching job. And maybe all these years of never really getting a sniff as a head coach, was he not prepared with a list?
Could be.
You know, I
be.
know one thing. I know coaches that I've been with, guys like Sean Payton, John Gruden, Andy Reid, guys like that, Mike Holmgren, guys like that knew they were going to be NFL head coaches and had a list ready. Like the first thing I would ever ask a coach if I was interviewing him for the head coaching job, tell me who your staff is going to be. Walk me through who's your offensive line coach, who's your defensive coordinator, who's your quarterback coach, who's coaching wide receivers, who's coaching the secondary. Walk me through these guys. And if you don't have a good idea of guys or gals that you want to hire, I don't think I'm going to hire you. I don't think I'm going to hire you. And I think what happened here is Brian Schottenheimer got hired without a list, but maybe he rallied and thought, oh, well, here, I could go get a guy at Arizona, or I could go get the guy from Kansas State, or he had an idea of some offensive guys that he wanted. And then he kind of supplemented that with lower level guys, with Simcoe and those guys. All of a sudden they're assistants, guys. And then now they become positional coaches. They go from assistant something to actual quarterback coach. So there was some elevation within. The thing that kind of hurt Shoddy was they really weren't interested in Al Harris. And as they kind of feel like that maybe, and listen, folks, don't kill me about this. I'm just telling you what they're thinking. Right. They thought that Al Harris was coddling Diggs, and that a lot of the things that a lot of the problems that Diggs was having was because Al Harris allowed it. So, so Brian Schottenheimer, could he wanted to hire Mike Zimmer back? Sure. I bet he did. But Zimmer said, no, wait a minute, man. I've been offered the head coaching job here, or promised it 3 different times, and they haven't delivered one time. I ain't staying around here. So, who else stayed? Who else were the other coaches that stayed? I don't think anybody stayed. Once Eberflus got the job, he convinced them, well, I'm going to bring a linebacker coach. I'm going to bring a secondary coach. White Cotton was a guy that somebody in the organization was obviously on, and that might have been a Jerry Jones hire too. I don't think that Brian Schottenheimer had all these coaches in line on the defensive side of the ball. I think he was more prepared offensively with coaches he knew plus elevations where he had to hire a whole new staff. If Mike Zimmer would have stayed, well, then maybe you would have kept the continuity of the guys who were already already here. And instead, the Jeff Zaginas and the guys like that, maybe those guys stay. But once that Mike left, it was a clean house situation.
You are listening to the Love of the Star podcast. Love of the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you find your podcasts. Let's preview the rest of the Chargers. I think you knocked out the offensive side of the football on our previous episode with Eric Chiafalo. So let's put a bow on this thing with defense and then get our game predictions before we move into our Dean Julia mailbag. Zach Wolchuk alongside Brian Broaddus. Of course, Love of the Star brought to you by the On Time Experts, the official AC heating and plumbing partner for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, you look at this Chargers defense, Brian, and it's pretty darn good. They are a very opportunistic defense, and they've got some studs at every level.
Yeah, they do. And, and I think it really kind of starts with Derwin James, the safety. And I think people when Derwin James came out, he was selected, I believe, right before Dallas had the pick. There was thought, oh, man, Derwin James is sliding. And then I think the Chargers grabbed him right before Dallas picked. And that would have been a great pick. He's a guy that could play the nickel. He can play deep. He can play around the line of scrimmage. He likes to sacrifice himself when they blitz. This is a team that doesn't blitz very often, but when they do bring Okay, well, let me give you the metrics on this. Blitz about 20% of the time, which is completely opposite of the team you played last week, who was in that 50% blitz mode situation. So here you go from one of the most blitz happy teams to one of the teams that don't blitz really at all. So now you're in a situation, but when they do bring the fifth rusher, whether it's one of those linebackers, whether it's the safety, slot core, whoever they bring, that fifth rusher, they've getting pressure about 55% of the time. They are that good when it comes to it. The everybody likes to talk about the edge rushers here. Like it's kind of our thing. Like, well, what kind of guys they have rushing? What kind of there's some name guys. Don't get me wrong. There's some name guys, but this is a defense, much like like last week when you saw at Minnesota, they do a really, really good job of like playing for each other and then also creating opportunities for each other. So, and you mentioned this is a very opportunistic team when it comes to turnovers. Dak has got to be really, really sure, throwing the football against the secondary because they do get their hands on a lot of balls. There's a lot of tip balls in the air. The ball seems to go right to a defender. We remember the Philly game where, the Eagles were driving for the game winner and then they get a tip ball that turns into, they are very opportunistic that way. They're always around the football. They're always finding ways to make plays throughout. So this will be a team, like I said, that, might not blitz very much. When they do bring the fifth guy, it's going to be something that you're going to have to be able to kind of deal with here. And then, but you also have to deal with the turnovers. And Dak has got to be like almost dead on accurate when it comes to where he's going with the football. Because any missed throw could be a tip. Any overthrown is likely going to be interceptions. These guys do not drop footballs. They do not make mistakes. Jesse Minter has got him playing at a very, very high level. They're one of the best teams in the league when it comes to overall defensive success. We talk about successful plays, with the rushes of over 4 yards. They just don't give up. They don't give a lot of points. And when they create those types of situations where they force you into some mistakes, they've been really outstanding the whole year. Because on the flip side, like we talked about with Eric and I the other day, this offensive line is a mess and it's compromised and they give up pressures and the quarterback has to make a lot of throws. They got great skill guys. This will be defensively. This will be another big test for the Dallas Cowboys to have to deal with the talent that they have over there with the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, and they've got a really good third down defense.
Yeah.
So that's another thing for you. Now, one area that they haven't been great in is the red zone. They're tied. I think they're tied for 27th in the red zone. So that's an area for the Cowboys. They also have been struggling here recently. That will be fascinating because this defense has really kept the Chargers in it a lot. Because offensively, we know they've been struggling. Their health on the offensive line has been really a problem.
Not good.
Not good at all. So defensively, they've been in a lot of tight games, but can the Cowboys, if they're able to move the ball, can they find a way to finish drives against the Chargers? That will be a big question.
Yeah, that's, that's where, Dallas, for the most part, has had, some success. It's a little bit better running the ball. They settled for far too many field goals, last week against Minnesota. But can they find a way to make a difference? Like I said, it's with guys like I mentioned that these players and Khalil Mack, they've got guys. I mean, Caldwell, who we really liked out of the drafted at Oregon last year, as a nose tackle, big body guy, super athletic. It's a team that's got a lot of talent on it. I mean, probably a lot of people don't know all the names, But yeah, can Dallas get down there in the red zone and like find a way not to come away with field goals? Find a way to either run the ball in or find a way to creatively get somebody open. Get Jake Ferguson going. We'll see what happens. This whole thing. I could see Jesse Minter in this game taking some of the things that Minnesota did to you. Maybe not on the blitz level, but we've seen coaches kind of play a different form against Dallas. We've seen coaches, we know at Detroit, with Detroit, very, very, very heavy man, played more zone coverage. Could we see the Chargers blitzing more than what they have in the past? We know they're probably going to bring that fifth rusher, but could we see them try and take George Pickens out of the game with some linebacker coverage, with some safety play in that way? The last couple of weeks, teams have taken George Pickens out of the game, and it has resulted in victories for them. So we'll see. They've let CeeDee Lamb catch the ball, and they've also let Brian Flanoy catch the ball, but it hasn't equated to victories. Be fascinated to see what the Chargers strategy is, this week. The Chargers have been kind of a wild team. Some days they play early games and travel and they're awful. And then other times they're pretty locked into what they're doing. So hopefully you catch them on a bad day, but they're playing for a lot themselves this week. They're not going to win the division, but they're playing for seeding. They're playing for that seeding to, if something were to happen crazy, you never know. You never know playing for seeding where you might end up if all of a sudden all the home teams get knocked off and then you're the fourth seed and you're hosting a game when the first week you went out on the road but then there's an upset with all the teams. You just never know. So you want to be the highest seed as possible.
It is bizarre because you don't, with both of these teams, you don't really know which team's going to show up.
No,
the Chargers are
not.
better, in my opinion, and they're definitely playing better right now.
Yeah.
But the Cowboys, if they're able to do some of the things that they were doing well over that 3-game stretch, they certainly are capable of beating the Chargers team. That Justin Herbert, and I don't know if it's him necessarily, but the offensive line also just being a complete mash unit, but they'll keep you in games by turning the ball over. The problem is the Cowboys have not consistently been able to get a pass rush and force turnovers. So they allow the second most sacks in the league. That you don't have right now any hope that the Cowboys are going to be able to exploit that. But they could show up and all of a sudden on Sunday the blitz works. They blitz over Schoen. They send Maris Leofau. Here comes Shamar James. All of a sudden, Sam Williams wins on the edge. You never know what can happen week to week in the NFL. But they got a lot of weapons. And Trey Harris is a guy that it sounds like they've been talking up a lot this week. We liked him a lot coming out of Ole Miss, second round pick. Thought maybe if the Cowboys didn't land Tedero McMillan in the first round, could he be a target in the second round? Chargers snatched him pretty high with their pick in the second round there. That's a player that I would keep an eye on if I was a Cowboy fan that could possibly emerge as a bigger option. We know about Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen, Aronde Gadsden. I know Vach and I loved getting to see him work at the Shrine Bowl. And then they're going to want to run the football with Marion Hampton and Kamani Vidal. But they got to find a way.
Vidal is like bounces off people. Hampton was one of my favorite backs coming out of the draft.
Yeah. And then defensively, Tua Peloto, USC. I remember Dan Quinn was out there working him out at USC.
Absolutely.
The Cowboys.
I think he's been better than Mac rushing the passer myself. I really do.
And then we knew, man, Dion Henley in what was not a good linebacker draft. I think it was like 3 years ago, but he was the best guy. And he's been sensational from Washington State. So yeah, it's coming into it. Your Cowboy optimism's not high in this one. Right. I wouldn't be stunned if it would be very Cowboys-like to come out and win this game. You're essentially done, especially if they are eliminated. It's even more Cowboy-like for them to come out and play well, and they find a way to eke out an ugly victory. But what's your official game prediction for this one?
Yeah, the Chargers haven't scored many points, and they don't give up many points. I don't trust you. You mentioned earlier. I do not trust the Dallas secondary, especially with some of the news now that we're hearing about some of the injuries. We'll see tomorrow if Diggs. I'm kind of hearing whispers that Diggs has kind of been the same, practice a little better. We'll see if they elevate him. I don't think they will, but you never know. I think the secondary will be in trouble. I don't think they generate a good pass rush, even against teams that might be a little compromised. The run defense at times has been good. Other times it's been kind of poor. I think the Chargers win this game. I think they've got a lot more to play for. I think the Chargers find a way to win this game, and they win it 28-17 would be my guess.
Yeah, I'll lean Chargers as well. I mean, it's great. If Quentin Williams wasn't playing, I definitely would have picked the Chargers. The fact that he's in, because I don't think the Cowboys' run defense is good without Quentin Williams. I think they'd gotten exploited again. He's the difference maker. But, I'll go 27-23. Chargers find a way to get an ugly victory, and it's a bummer. But wouldn't be shocked if the Cowboys came away with a victory here, I will say. But I'm not. I don't have the balls to pick them this week. All right, you are listening to the Love of the Star podcast. Love of the Star is an Odyssey podcast, and you can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. The Dean Julia mailbag. It is time. It is here. Let's go ahead and knock it out. Zach Wolchuk alongside Brian Broaddus here on Love of the Star, proudly presented by the On Time Experts. Make sure you find them on the ontimeexperts.com. Hit that book now button. And they're driving around the Metroplex in their On Time Experts cars. If you see them, take a picture and tag us on the Twitters. Like, oh, there's your guys, the On Time Experts. We'd love that. All right, we got some questions here. Let's start off with Kane, 23. Brian, any truth to the story that the Cowboys had interest in Jim Leonard last year for defensive coordinator before going with Eberflus? And if so, could he be an option in the offseason?
I don't. Did you hear anything yourself about Jim Leonard? I don't think they interviewed a lot of people. I think they thought about him. I don't know if he actually got an interview. But yeah, I mean, Jim Leonard, I'll let you, because you're the one that would love to fight for Jim Leonard here. Go ahead.
I'd love to get Jim. I think that this is a guy you talk about, poaching from really good defensive staffs. He's the passing game coordinator and assistant head coach in Denver. To me, it's them or Houston who's the best defense in football. Jim Leonard was an interim coach at Wisconsin where he played. He has a relationship with Shoddy, was playing for the Jets when Shoddy was the offensive coordinator. I think Will McClay liked Jim Leonard. I think this would have been one of Will's guys if he had the final call of who to hire. I heard whispers. I think he would have pushed for Jim Leonard. But I think, of course, Jerry and Steven have familiarity, and so did Will, with Matt Eberflus. And the fact that he also had former head coaching experience, I think, Eberflus was the guy that eventually got the gig. But I do think there's been interest in that building from Will and I think others in Jim Leonard. Now, we had stink on Mark Schlereth, and he did make the point where if Vance Joseph, who is their defensive coordinator, gets a head coaching job, they're just going to elevate and make Leonard the defensive coordinator. So you might get screwed in that regard. But I would love to go and get him. I mean, if you do clean house, Jim Leonard would be the number one call I would make.
I like what you're saying there. I've kind of looked at some situations where I think, to me, you got to look at maybe some of these coaches. If teams make moves, we've seen, like I say, our guy got down in Tampa. If in fact that the head coach, if all of a sudden they make a switch, they completely fall apart. Could Todd Bowles be a guy that you look at? I think Jim Schwartz in Cleveland would be another guy that I would look at. You talked about the Jim Leonard. Would Matt Patricia at Ohio State want to get back into things, back in the NFL? That could always be a possibility. The college routes always, I mentioned, like I say, the Ohio State job and stuff, but that's, I would hope that it would be a more of an extensive search than it was. It seemed like that this organization was set on Matt Eberflus, but maybe now that they know that there's a possibility of making this, that they take these last three games and kind of kind of back channel some names and see if in fact that maybe somebody be interested in coming in here and being the head coach, or excuse me, being the defensive coordinator.
All right, Dal Chamberlain's asking if Shoddy gave you the option to have a long look at Elijah Clark and Jaden Blue or Shamar James and Phil Maffa, who do you play and start and why?
I'll take the look at Phil Maffa just because I think there was some things that we were liking in training camp. And where I would need to think about this is if Phil Maffa were to play the next 3 weeks, say at a level where it's like, wow, it's 4.5, 4.6 a carry, it's all positive gains. There's a physicality to it. He's a nice fit with the offensive line. He's hitting the hole. He's making cuts. He's catching the football. Maybe if Phil Maffa, would keep you from having to spend $8 to $10 million on Williams, or maybe even drafting somebody. So I would love to see. Now, listen, Phil Maffa and Blue and those guys playing right now. I ain't playing Dak Prescott, I don't think. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not. I mean, we saw what Malik Davis was in there for like 13 pass snaps, dropbacks, and got 4 pressures on him. That's big when Williams is not in there, Hunter Lipke's not in there. But I'd like to see Maffa just to kind of see if he could be a back that could keep me from having to maybe draft a back or go sign a back in free agency.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I would love to see Phil Maffa, and I'd like to see more of Shamar James. Let's just go ahead and say screw this.
Well, I kind of feel like though. I'm sorry, Zach.
Yeah,
I kind of feel like we've seen because James had to play the first.
He did
8, 9, 10 games of the season.
Yeah, he did.
He had to play.
We've definitely seen him. I just don't think Elijah Clark. I think is a special teams guy right now. I don't want to put him. I mean, you could if you want to do it. They need a clean house at safety, so I can understand the argument. I'm trying to figure out, can Shamar James start for me next year?
Sure.
And so that's why I'd like to see, because are you going to go Overshown and Shamar James and then draft your linebacker? Are you going to draft your Mike? Is he going to be Sonny Styles from Ohio State? Are you going to look at Jacob Rodriguez from Tech, or C.J. Allen from Georgia, or Anthony Hill Jr. from Texas, whoever it might be? I think this is a good draft to get your corner and linebacker in round 1. I'd love to get this taken care of in free agency so that if I need to be aggressive, I can go get Caleb Downs. This defense has not had a player like Caleb Downs. There is not a safety in free agency that I think could come close to the impact that he's got. I can sign Devin Lloyd as a linebacker, and I know what Devin Lloyd is, and he's going to be a player that, boom, plug and play. I've upgraded at linebacker. Can I go get an edge? Can I get Jalen Phillips in free agency? Can I go get Odafe Owe from the Chargers, who's going to be a free agent?
Owe's a nice player for them too.
Yeah.
But
could I get I mean, there's some options here.
The question I asked you guys on the G-Bag Nation today is, and I know maybe people are hearing it for the first time, what's the position you would pay the most money to go get?
Yeah, and to me it was end. I mean, I think Gavin Dawson made a good case. If you just look at the money, you're probably might have to pay the most. Yeah, for an end. Yeah. And Hendrickson, I have a big asterisk next to Trey Hendrickson right now.
The back. Then
he's not a healthy player.
He's not a healthy player.
He's got a core injury and a back injury, and he's 30 years old.
Yeah.
We need to make sure. Like,
I'm with you on that. I'm with you. I'm with you on this one.
He's a sexy name, and he's been a great player. And if he was healthy, I was all for trying to trade for him at the deadline.
Right.
But the fact is, he's not. So until we get the clean bill of health, I'm not interested.
I'm with you, man. I am with you on that. I am with you on that. Absolutely.
The other question we got here as we continue the mailbag. 12th man Kool-Aid. Good luck this weekend, A&M. Has George Pickens played his way into an easier extension than we expected about a month ago?
So you're saying I still think he's going to get tagged. I'd love to see him get signed. I'd love to see him get signed for like a 3-year deal. He's like a younger guy, so you could kind of like maybe David Mulugeta will work with you like on a 3-year deal and kind of get back to the free agency thing quicker. I think you'd save more money by signing him than tagging him, right? Long term.
I'm with you 100%. I love that idea. I want to try and marry his contract up as much with Dak and CD.
Dax, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
because I'm interested in keeping George Pickens because I'm trying to maximize Dak Prescott. Once
Right.
I don't have Dak Prescott, it is what it is. We're probably looking at a whole different scenario here anyway.
I still think George Pickens is probably looking at himself as between a $30 and probably $33 million a year player.
Sure.
I think that's what he's probably looking at.
Yeah,
but I'd like to do it if Adam Pacifica and those guys, the cap guys, if they could do it on a shorter term, I'm all in. Maybe say, okay, hey, we'll do it on a shorter term, and here's the money, and you could get back to free agency quicker. If it works out, great. You're gonna have to pay him, or somebody else will.
Yeah,
but at least you've got him under contract for 3 years here. That's what I would try and do. That's what I would try and do.
100%. All right, last one here from Stephen Martell. And I'm not sure if you've watched this player yet. I think if you haven't, I've got him. Where does Anthony Hill fall on your board? He showed a
tell me about Anthony Hill. Yeah, because I have Anthony Hill on my little Post-it notes here. I got my little Anthony. Yeah, I've got him. I watched that R. Mason Thomas today from Oklahoma. But yeah, and then I've got to watch your guy Height, the defensive end from Tech. But I have not seen linebacker Hill, but he is on my list to do, and I will do that tomorrow morning.
So I mean, I've loved Anthony Hill since he was at Denton Ryan, local star there. He was the co-Big 12 Defensive Freshman of the Year. He got the Sean Alexander Freshman of the Year award. And fun fact, born at the same hospital Barry Sanders was born at. So I mean, hey. I don't know, maybe there's something in the water there.
There's greatness in the water.
Greatness in the water there, Wichita, Kansas. He is a good athlete. I mean, I think he's got ideal size for the position. He's got a natural feel for the game. He is a good blitzer. Sometimes he's not always consistent when I watched him this year, and I do think the tape this year was not as good as his first and second year.
You're telling me go back last year. You're going to tell me that, aren't you?
I think you definitely need to watch at least one game in 2024 to get a full picture on him. Right. I like the closing speed. I think he's got good burst, short area quickness. You can see him make plays in coverage. I think he's got a good feel for zone. He can pick up tight ends. I want to see a more physical player sometimes from him.
Yeah.
I think he can over pursue. He can run himself out of plays and out of position or miss tackles at times. But you can see he's the communicator of the defense. And I think he processes and diagnoses things really well. Relentless pursuit, doesn't quit on plays. He does look a little stiff sometimes.
Okay.
And I wonder if that was because he was hurt this year. Because when I went back and asked my Texas people, I was like, man, watching him against Ohio State and then against OU, I was a little disappointed. And they said that he wasn't healthy. But going back and you watch him against Arizona State, in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl or whatever the hell
he's all over the place. Yeah.
Makes all the plays. Yeah. So I like Anthony Hill quite a bit. I ended up putting him behind CJ Allen, which I wasn't. They're close, but I put him behind CJ Allen. So I've got Sonny Styles as my top guy, and that's just because I've got Arvell Reese as an edge. I've got Jacob Rodriguez at my second best linebacker, and I probably am going to have him higher than others. I don't care. And then CJ Allen and Anthony Hill Jr. That's how I've got them ranked right now.
Yeah, I'm interested. I'm interested in now. Where did you have Hill? You have him as an inside
second
linebacker?
Round. Yeah, inside linebacker, second round.
Did you put Rodriguez in the first round?
I did.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Man, this is going to be the struggle for me. This is going to be the struggle, and I'm not too sure about that one. And this is one of those. Every year I struggle with a guy. And I struggle because I'm watching BYU and I'm watching, the Arizona State. And these are supposedly very highly graded PFF graded games for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not seeing it as well as I need to. And so this is the problem. And this guy is one of the most, and we're talking about Rodriguez, the linebacker from Jacob Rodriguez, right? From
Texas Tech.
From Texas Tech. I like the player. I'm not seeing the player that everybody else is seeing, and that's bothering me.
He's not the athlete that like a CJ Allen is, right?
Yeah, but
and
I
some
mean,
of these other guys.
Oh no, but the guy, like when you watch him in coverage, the fluidity, the turn, it's the turn, and then go. I mean, you could see that. You could see him knifing through and making plays. I think the 6'1", 235 bothers me at the position.
I understand.
I think that's what bothers me at the position. I think he's a good football player. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here. I just don't have the vision of the Nagurski Award winner, the Lombardi Award winner, the Butkus Award winner, the All-American. Man, I haven't seen that game that's just blown my socks away. And if anybody out there wants to flip me a game, please tell me. I'll find it.
Sure.
But I've gone through these games and I'm kind of like, man, this guy's 6'1", he's 235. He looks like he has a nose for the ball. Okay. But I was thinking the way he played that he was every down like that. Like I'm watching Utah, I'm watching BYU, I'm watching teams kind of block him a little bit. So that's my struggle there.
For sure. And I'm excited to see the playoff. Right. And
me too. The playoff tapes are the best.
And because they have, let's be real, Tech has not played a team like Oregon, right? They haven't played I think BYU's good. I think Utah's good. The Big 12, I think, is a conference that probably doesn't
you start to talk about the quality of the offensive line and the physicality that you have to play with. Yeah.
Especially with Utah. But I think just some of the skill talent that an Oregon like Kenyon Sadiq's he's gonna stretch him out.
Sadiq is gonna be a problem,
right? Yep. So that's gonna be a big test for a guy like Jacob Rodriguez. And you're not wrong. I've had a lot of other people tell me you're crazy. In what world is Jacob Rodriguez better than CJ Allen? You are probably right. I am the only one of the few that is going to fight for him to be there. I don't care about the size with him.
I never. Well, look, you could talk about the guy at Georgia the Bears to the Ravens, Roquan Smith.
Well, Nakobe Dean's not a big guy, and he's balling out for the Eagles right now. Yeah. Like I just think sometimes with these linebackers that he's got an it about him, and
Swessinger from UCLA kind of had that it about him. Yeah,
there's something about him. I just think it's going to translate, and he's just going to be a good football player, like Jack Campbell with the Lions. I think he's going to be good.
Now Campbell's a bigger guy.
He's bigger. Yeah,
Campbell's bigger,
but not the athlete. I feel like we'll see. Maybe Rodriguez tests better than I think he will be.
I had a scout in the league telling me. Let's see if I can find this real quick. I asked a scout about him, and let's see if I still have the scout in my phone. I usually save all the things that. Yeah, I asked him. I said, your thoughts on Rodriguez, linebacker, Texas Tech? He says, I love him. Playmaker. Won't meet all the boxes, but he's a damn good player who I think finds a way to be a really good NFL player as well. So
I just don't think he's going to bust. Yeah. I just think he's going to be, will he be an all-pro? Maybe
it's not. Amazing his story from Virginia, and then he gets hurt coming to Tech, and then the last 2 years he's been incredible.
Former quarterbaig. I mean, he's a former quarterback. They've made it's crazy. He does. Crazy. I mean, the story, all that might make me like him a little more. I might be insane, but I'd fight. He's not going to go in the first round, but I'd consider it.
Hey man, it's your board. You do what you damn well want. I'm going to fight you though. When we start our show, The Stack, I'm going to fight you on that one.
Let's go. I'm ready.
All
right, buddy. Well, always a pleasure. I have a blast talking shop with you. Thank you so much for always making Love of the Star part of your day, wherever you're listening, whatever you might be doing. We have a blast doing it, and thank you for making us a part of your day. Until next time, Zach Wolchuk alongside the Super Bowl winning scout Brian Broaddus. Hugs and hand pounds, everybody.